Hi, this is Anthony Capizzoli with the How to Tour Italy radio show, and I have with me once again Kit Burns from Villa Vacations and Doorways Limited, and we are going to be talking about places to stay that are wonderful, beautiful, and accessible to the wonderful city of Rome and the surrounding region of Lazio with the conclave coming up. This is a very timely segment because we're going to be sharing some tips and insights that will allow you to go and stay in comfort and in beauty. And welcome to the show, Kit.
Thanks. Good to talk to you again.
Absolutely, and I know there's so much going on in Rome right now with Conclave starting next Tuesday. So this is going to be an exciting segment to talk about some properties that you could highlight for folks that need a place to stay on their stay during Conclave in Rome.
Good. Some of our apartments are sold out, as I'm sure some hotels are filling up. We still have a few.
Sure.
And I guess the first one I'd like to talk about is called the Embassy Apartment. Its location is a very good one up near the American Embassy. It has 3 bedrooms, actually. It sleeps 5. It's maybe more comfortable for 4, with a nice kitchen, a beautiful living room. It's a very, very beautiful apartment. And it has full availability for that time.
Oh, great.
I guess they're talking about trying to elect the new pope before Easter.
Yeah, I heard that as well, so that the Easter Mass can be celebrated by the Pope, the new Pope. And I have a feeling that Rome is just going to, in fact, I just did a segment probably a week ago with Rob Allen from Through Eternity talking about the hustle and bustle and the beautiful kind of magnificence of Rome during Conclave, which is wonderful. So I think it's really a wonderful time to be there to participate in such a wonderful celebration. And then, after the Pope's elected, you can probably get into the Sistine Chapel, so it works out well for everybody.
Yes. Of course, right now the Sistine Chapel is going to be closed.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's certainly not available for visitation during Conclave, unless, of course, you are a cardinal. But other than that, I think it's kind of off limits to the general public. But that's okay. There's so many wonderful things to do. And, in order to do that, there's some places to stay. So, and quite frankly, the U.S. Embassy in this apartment is very well located. I know there's the Hard Rock Cafe is right nearby there as well. So,
the Via Veneto, it is just off the Via Veneto, a block off of the Via Veneto, which you saw featured in a lot of movies, I guess, during the 80s probably.
Sure.
With all the big, beautiful sidewalk cafes. And there's also a little tourist bus, a little electric bus that runs on a loop from this area down, and it really stops in all Piazza Navona, Campo de Fiori, the Forum. It stops at all the places you'd want to stop at. So that makes it very convenient for getting around.
Yeah, that little tourist bus is actually a really cool way to get around the city. It is that little electric one. I know it looks like it's about a quarter the size of a regular bus.
Yes, it's a tiny, because it goes right in with the people in the squares. If you're in the Campo de Fiori and it comes through, it's just like one other person.
Right.
But we love this apartment. It has 2 bathrooms. It's fully air-conditioned. There's an elevator. It's not always easy to find air-conditioned apartments and apartments with elevators in the historical ancient quarter of Rome, because everything is zoned and you can't have ugly air conditioners hanging out of windows and so forth. But we have made a concerted effort to have all of our apartments have air conditioning, and almost all of them have elevators.
That's nice, and it's true. They do have lots of restrictions on, in the historical centers, not just of Rome but throughout Italy, to make sure that those places stay pristine. And they do a very good job of that. They're pretty strict.
Yeah.
But it's nice when you're able to find places that are centrally located like that with beautiful facades, and then you get air conditioning. That makes it pretty nice.
That does. So this particular apartment rents. This is interesting that most villas rent Saturday to Saturday, and it's a 1-week minimum. In Rome, we have a 5-night minimum and any day of the week entry. So you have a little more flexibility in when you go. Sundays are somewhat discouraged because that's a family day in Italy, and then we have to pay extra to have somebody meet you, so it costs a little more if you go on Sunday. But basically, this apartment is wide open also for Easter, and it's a great place for families.
Yeah, that sounds great.
The cost of it, let's see, for the period leading up to Easter, Holy Week, would be $5,000. It's approximately $5,000 a week, and it takes up to 5.
Again, that's pretty affordable. I mean, if you do the math, with kind of splitting the cost with the number of folks that'll be visiting with you and the location and stuff, that's very reasonably priced.
Mm-hmm. It comes with maid service 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, a welcome basket, and the owner lives upstairs, and she has a driver that she makes available for her, the car service available for her guests too. So she can organize that they'll be picked up at the airport. It's not free, but it's a personal service, which is great.
Sure. And what was the name of that property again? I'm sorry.
Embassy, the Embassy apartment.
Oh, that one. Okay, great. Sure.
It's easy to remember. And then it's always a question when you're renting in Rome where you want to be. People usually ask for the Spanish Steps. I think that's what they've heard of, I guess, the Trevi Fountain and the Spanish. And we do have about 7 or 8 apartments there. There are other areas that are fabulous to stay in, too. A little bit like New York, Rome is a city of neighborhoods. I don't know if you found that. For instance, the Jewish ghetto area is the most ancient, other than right across the river from it in Trastevere. And we have a Cenci apartment there in that area, which I happen to love. It has 3 bedrooms, has air-conditioned bedrooms, and has an elevator. And this one has a nice modern kitchen. And it still has some availability. Not, I think, for Easter. It's booked for Easter, but it has 2 weeks available in April. And then from July 6th, it's completely wide open. And it's quite pretty. 2 bathrooms, 3 bedrooms, a dining room, a separate dining room, a living room. Most of our apartments have Wi-Fi, and this is no exception. It has a dishwasher, a clothes washer, and for instance, 6 people, it's $3,696, so just under $4,000 a week.
That's great. In the Jewish ghetto, I do want to point out the food and the restaurants in that particular area of Rome are amazing. I love it. It's a very neighborhood feel, and with Trastevere just right there, I mean, it's just, it really is a beautiful place to stay. And as you say, all these neighborhoods, Rome is really a wonderful walking city. It doesn't have to be, everyone kind of in their mind's eye might think that it's expansive, and it is a large city, but all of these wonderful sites and everything that we're talking about are moments, a few minutes walk here and there, and, even if you have to jump on the city bus or something, it's a very accessible city.
It is. The historic monuments and the Piazza Navona, which is such a wonderful large oval square for sitting out in and having ice cream and coffee, and the Campo dei Fiori, where they have an open-air market each morning, or the Forum, the Pantheon, the Colosseum. These are all easily walking distance. And the Spanish Steps and the Trevi Fountain. You can walk, I'd say, within 20 minutes to any of these. The only one that's a little farther is the Vatican, but there are all kinds of public transport systems taking you to the Vatican, or you could grab a cab.
Sure.
Yeah. So, I think it's a very walkable city. It has a good subway system too, but it just makes sort of one big cross. So if you don't happen to be on one of those legs, it crosses at the central train station. If you don't happen to be on one of those lines, then you have to take a bus to one of those, which is a little harder. I think it's a lot easier just to walk.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
And the one thing I like about the Rome subway system is they've been building it for, it seems, as long as ancient Rome has been around, because they keep running into wonderful sites that they either have to stop and then do archaeological research, of course, to save these wonderful sites and things that have been around for thousands of years, but each of the stops is named after kind of the largest monument or most popular attraction, if you will, or tourist site in that area. So it's a very navigable subway system, which is very cool too.
Yeah, definitely. Then we have the Navona apartment, which is just off the Navona, the Piazza di Navona, and that can sleep up to 4 people. It depends a little bit on the time of the year, but about during the time of year we're talking about $2,000 a week. Or another apartment we have, I think, that is quite reasonable and has a little terrace, an outdoor terrace, for 2 people. It's about $2,000 a week.
In Terrace Life, just to point out for folks that are heading over and getting an apartment in Rome, Terrace Life is quite fun. You can sit out, have a little bit of wine, and enjoy kind of the sights of Rome kind of passing you by, because it's a lively city. It is fun to get in the morning. The city waking up is quite a bit different than the city at night going to bed, and it's kind of nice to get a feel for that and all of the smells from the wonderful restaurants nearby. So it's a fun way to go. I've done it myself, and I always enjoy that because you do feel as you know, like living as a local in that instance, because you're going into the apartment building to get into the apartment, of course, and it's a really kind of a fun experience. I highly recommend it for anyone traveling to Rome or to rent an apartment. It's just a fun way to go.
Now, if you have a few more people, you can go into the countryside outside of Rome during this time, and the weather's getting better. I know I've been in Rome in March when you can sit outside in the piazza and have your breakfast or lunch. Have you experienced that?
I have.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely warmer than Philadelphia, where I'm from. So we have a villa out near Viterbo in Lazio. Lazio is the countryside area around Rome. And in fact, Julia Roberts stayed there while she was filming Eat, Pray, Love.
How nice is that? I mean, who would want to stay at a villa that Julia Roberts crashed at? That's correct.
I think it's very appealing. And it's the owners live on the property. There are really 2 houses. There's the sort of traditional, elegant villa, and then a more modernized, smaller, I suppose it was a farmhouse probably assisting the villa, but beautifully renovated. And so smaller groups, the owners are willing to move to the villa if a smaller group wants to rent the smaller house, or they'll stay in their house while you rent the larger villa. It will hold up to 20 people. And for this period we're talking about, it's $13,000 a week. And that would be Saturday to Saturday, 1 week minimum rentals. In high season, that gets more expensive, goes up to $20,000, but it can sleep up to 20 people.
Yeah, and we had talked about that on a different segment. We were talking about, in fact, the wonderful Villa Laura of Under the Tuscan Sun fame. And this is great that we're talking about 2 great villas where we could say that Hollywood people have stayed, if you will. I mean, Julia Roberts, and of course they filmed Under the Tuscan Sun. But if people sit back for a moment and think about that, if you divide that cost by the number of people staying in there, it really is quite reasonable. And why not, when you're staying there, I would hope that the people would bring the book Eat, Pray, Love, and read and enjoy, because how fun is that?
That is fun, isn't it? Excuse me. Also, interestingly, some of the villas we have in the southernmost part of Umbria are also quite close to Rome. We have 2 beautiful places near Orvieto. And Orvieto is a direct train link on the main line that goes between Florence and Rome. Orvieto is a stop closer to Rome. It takes less than an hour, and they have a big parking lot, free, with an escalator leading up to the train station. So you can stay in one of these villas and easily get into Rome for the day, and yet be in the real countryside, sort of the best of both worlds. One is called Villa Selvanica, and it's a smaller villa. It sleeps 7, although there's an extra apartment that people can or don't have to rent, which keeps the cost down. That would add a total then of 11. So that villa, when you take just the main house, which also has air-conditioned bedrooms and a pool, and also, by the way, very, very good central heat. So if you want to go in the winter, it's one of the best. We've had people there over Christmas, so it'd be certainly wonderful in March. And the main house during March is $6,176 for 7 people.
Yeah, again, reasonably priced. And I have to say, I've not been or spent much time in Italy in the winter, but that's something I've always wanted to do, and it seems like such a fun option. Because I would imagine, the day-to-day life in Italy is quite a bit different in the winter as opposed to the summer, without the throngs of travelers, too.
Exactly. And Selvamica is one special thing about Selvamica. The owners are Americans, but they used to live there. And the wife was editor-in-chief of Food and Wine. And she loves to cook, and her kitchen is such a treat to cook in. I mean, it's a wonderful kitchen. And the cookbooks, you can imagine. Not to speak of all the tablecloths and the china and the ceramics. I mean, it's a wonderful place to really enjoy friends and family at the table, inside or out. The other villa, called Villa Bellissima, is just north of Orvieto. Again, you could go commute in from Orvieto. And it's a bigger villa. It has 6 bedrooms with ensuite bathrooms and a few extra beds in there, too. And during March, it's under $10,000 a week. And again, it's got in-floor heating and a beautiful pool with a jacuzzi tub and an ice maker in the refrigerator, safe in every bedroom. I mean, it's been beautifully renovated, but it's very charming. The owner is a Roman who grew up in Rome, and she has all her antiques from her family in the villa. So it's a nice mix of the modern amenities you really feel like you're in Italy. And she lives in a house on the next property. She's been a tour guide in Rome and in the area for much of her life. Part of her life actually was lived in Texas, believe it or not. She married an oil man. And her kids have been raised in half the time in Rome and half the time in Texas. And she's got a whole passel of them, and they are now tour guides, and she sort of runs the company, and they do wonderful tours in Rome.
That's great to know. I might be tapping you to ask if we can get them on the show to do some segments. That sounds great.
Yeah, they're terrific. One of them has now written a marvelous app for your iPhone called, let me just see if I can remember the name of the app while we're talking. I'll have to tell you that, and maybe you can post it on the site.
Sure.
It's a terrific interactive app, unlike a guidebook. It points where you are, and then you ask, you want to eat gelato, or you want the best restaurant from where you're standing, or the closest museum. And you can find it instantly on this app. Insider's Rome, it's called. And I found it very useful in Rome. And you don't have to bring books with you, and it serves as a map also. It's terrific. And her partner is a wine expert, and they're working on a wine app for Italy now, which I can't believe.
Isn't it great? I want to take a moment and just think about these kinds of wonderful jobs that people have. And I'm lucky enough to be on the fringe of this. I mean, really, I'm a tour guide in Rome. I write apps for Rome. It's just, that's such a wonderful way to live in terms of going to work every day. I'm lucky enough to be able to talk to these folks on the phone, rather on the radio show, which is outstanding. But it's just amazing to me. And it really kind of fits into this neat little mold of, if you find a way to get paid doing what you love, you never work another day in your life. And I truly believe that that's possible for everybody. Per this show, I mean, this is great.
Yeah, this is great. There's one other little house in the Aventine Hill of Rome, which is easily walkable, also in. And I actually stayed here with my daughter and grandchildren one summer. It sleeps 8+2 and has a huge terrace outside that's mahogany, I think. It's wooden, where we had a baby pool set up because the kids were little then. And there's a playground across the street. And so it was a great place to stay. And then we engaged the owner of Villa Bellissima. Her name is Ludovica. And Ludovica helped organize one of her daughters to give us tours of the, specifically designed for the younger children who are not going to have the attention span that older people are going to have. And so they did a special tour of the Colosseum for us. So we went there with an air-conditioned van. It was a hot day. And we went under the Colosseum to the underground area and then way up to the top, places where the tourists don't always go. And we can organize that sort of thing. There was frequent stops for coffee and gelato and some time to look at the action in the Piazza Navona. But we did see also the Pantheon, and we certainly hit the highlights. But it was digestible for kids who at that time were 3, 7, and 8. And I think when you're traveling with either somebody who's elderly, we did one family some years ago that the father was blind, and they needed some tour guides, and they wanted to visit the Assisi, and they wanted to visit the Vatican, and so we had a special tour guide for them.
Sure.
So if you have any special needs, which actually children fall a little bit into that category, it's very nice to be able to have this personalized itinerary, or to sign on to context tours that you've talked about before.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the wonderful thing is there's so many great options that people can take advantage of. And specifically, you mentioned the Underground Coliseum, and that's a relatively new opportunity for travelers. It used to have, obviously, as you know, and many travelers may know if they listen to the show, that wasn't a normal option for folks, and it's just recently opened. I talked to Amanda Ruggieri about that a couple of segments ago, and it's really a very popular tour. You do need to make reservations quite a bit in advance because they limit the number of people, obviously, that go down there. But it's truly, even if you've been to the Coliseum 50 times, it's a wonderful way to take a fresh, different perspective on it, and you kind of looking up at what the gladiators would see, which kind of would freak you out a little bit, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then the kids they had some costumed gladiators outside of the Colosseum. Kids really enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah.
We also, and you never know what you'll see in Rome. There's always something going on. There was a fashion shoot going on near the Colosseum when we were there, and the kids certainly loved watching that too.
That's great. There's always something cool. Like one of my favorite memories. I know we're talking about specific properties, but this all kind of ties into the properties that are available, the apartments with you. I happened to see there was like a mini circus almost. I don't know what I'd call it, but it was a fashion show / kind of Cirque du Soleil thing kind of going on between the Ancient Roman Forum and the Colosseum, and it was really cool because they had people like tightrope walking and doing kind of really entertaining gymnastics, and not like floor routines, but these like high up in the air routines and trapeze, and it was great. And they had all these beautiful people in suits and beautiful dresses and designer stuff and cars, and then I'm like, what is going on? And the Italians, it was like, yeah, just another day in Rome. But I was floored. I'm like, this is amazing, you know. And people will stumble on that kind of stuff all the time because there's always wonderful festivals to enjoy, which is great.
Isn't it? We just watched on public TV this week Andrea Bocelli singing in Portofino. I don't know if you had a chance to see that, but
I haven't yet.
How beautiful. Looking at Portofino and seeing the people in the boats in the harbor watching the concert. And it wasn't just opera, it was some popular music too. And the houses in Portofino all lit up as the sun was going down during the concert, and then it ended up being dark, and it was just gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, how do you beat that?
You stumble on these things in Italy. And
you really do.
Yeah. I find a lot of our families go there for spring break. It's a time that you can go that isn't, it isn't summer, so it's a little shorter trip. You should go for 10 days or something like that. But Rome is a wonderful destination. That grandchild who liked the gladiators is now studying ancient Rome, and of course he's very into it, having kids.
Sure. Absolutely. What I'm going to do, just for the listeners, is I'm going to have individual posts on howtotouritaly.com on the properties link. And of course, all of these details are going to be posted in terms of the name of these individual apartments, beautiful pictures, information, with all the link backs that you would need back to villavacations.com, so that you can take advantage of booking time at these beautiful apartments in Rome, and Villa d'Oro if you want to hang out where Julia Roberts was staying, which I would recommend, because I'm sure she wouldn't pick anything less than a 10-star location, which is pretty cool. And there's so many great things. And Kit, it is always a pleasure to have you on the show, and we're going to be doing this quite often, everybody, so please check back and listen to these great segments about individual properties. This one, we covered a few more kind of in the context of one segment, only because of Conclave coming up. We wanted to give people some availability options through Doorways Limited at villavacations.com, so that you could book your time and your space in Rome. With Conclave, things are going to be very, very, very busy. And these are some great options if you don't want to stay in a hotel and you really want to have a nice local feel and experience. It's always a great way to go. So, Kit, it's wonderful to have you on the show. And like I said, everyone, you can check us out at howtotouritaly.com, of course, or #TourItaly if you want to chat about this kind of stuff on Twitter. Kit, it's great to have you on the show, and I look forward to seeing you in Italy soon.
Arrivederci.
Arrivederci.